is Dr. Nancie Celini. Dr. Celini and John are both part of the 100-Year Secret when you watch it. So you'll hear them today, and then you can watch them at your leisure here over the weekend. So let me turn the call now over to Dr. Nancie Celini, and she'll be introducing our special guest, our good friend, Mr. John Molson. Nancie, take it away.
Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone. This has been just such an amazing call. And Sandy talked about legacy. I think she really laid out our next speaker and what we're going to talk about just beautifully, as did the speakers before. So I'm really happy to be with you all today. I hope you're staying warm. And I want to just take a few moments to frame this session. This is someone newer to the organization, despite my background in public health and speaking and educating and all that other stuff. I am marveling at the unwrapping, if you will, the continued journey and discovery that I have with this incredible organization myself. And when I was asked to interview and introduce John Molson today, I want to tell you that that is always a great honor, because by now I think everyone on the call should know of John's personal contributions to the development of Immunical. But in case you're new to the organization, I do want to tell you a little bit about John and why we're so fortunate to have him with us today as we look ahead, yes, always, but also as we back up a little bit and take that pause to go, where'd we come from? Because I think you heard a lot about the roots of this company and the science behind this flagship product. And it is a flagship product. I loved what Sandy said, penicillin-like discovery. And those of you who know about penicillin, it was one of the miracle drugs. So was aspirin. And we are very, very fortunate to have Immunical. And I just want to share a quote with all of you. Robert Heinlein, a very famous man of science and science writing, said, "A generation which ignores history has no past and no future." So we're going to take a few moments to explore some of the history of this company with John Molson, who, those of you who know him, know he's seventh generation descendant of the founder of the historic brewing and hockey family. As Vice President of Research and Development, John played a crucial role, worked alongside of Dr. Bunos, the lead scientist behind Immunical. And John, and all of that work contributed to over 30 publications for patent applications. I mean, the list could go on and on. We're a little short on time today, so I'm going to try to condense all this, which is always challenging. But John continues his role today, overseeing one of the most ambitious research projects looking at brain health. But his historical perspective should never be lost. We call someone like John in the drug development world and research, clinical research, the institutional knowledge keepers. And that is so important. So John, I want to welcome you warmly, and I want to open this discussion with you with a foundation of whey protein, because you recently said something to me that not discussing this product is like discussing air travel today without acknowledging the significance of the development of the jet engine. And I love that. We can so easily be distracted today, and we can lose sight of the significance of the discovery of whey protein that is combined today with the proper production, quality control, the product assays, and those, for those of you who are not familiar with it, that's ASSAY. It's a good word to have in your lexicon, but it may be foreign to a lot of people. Those are actual analytical measurements that are used in drug development to test and prove how much of the product is really reaching its target. Without this foundation, and I pause there, there's no glutathione story. And you heard Sandy talk about glutathione and the impact of that discovery. So I'm going to start with John Molson, again, wishing him a very warm welcome to be with us, and tell him how happy I am to get to ask him a couple of questions in the time we have. So John, I want to start with a question that keeps coming up for me in a lot of discussions, and that's about the science behind Immunical. In contrast to the buckets of vitamins that some of the people I'm talking to prefer to ingest from a large box store. Can you take us back a bit in history and let us listen as you explain why the two things are not the same, the buckets of vitamins and Immunical? Can you start by describing the legacy of Dr. Bunus's work in whey protein? And then I'd like you to touch on the value proposition, because I think that's our takeaway from today. So John, welcome. Loaded question for you. Thanks.
Thank you. And welcome to everybody. I want to ask you a question. Have you read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
Big fan.
So the key attributes that come across in that is that people that make discoveries are in a position for a reason. And if you look at Dr. Bunus was the perfect person to be in that position to make sense of what he had found, because essentially, you know, the whey protein industry at that time, there was nothing published on glutathione. And the development of the science around glutathione was also just coming on stream. So Dr. Bunus, through his genius, had to understand mechanistically what was causing this reaction. Why was the immune system responding to, you know, these proteins? And one of the interesting things that came out of that was that, and this is a takeaway when you go into a store, is that when they fed these proteins to mice, and they fed the version of Immunical in those days together with different other forms of protein, the nutritional profile of those proteins was all the same. And they actually looked at the blood of these animals, and there was no change in the serum proteins in the blood. So that said, when you go into a store and you see a whey protein with a certain nutritional profile, another whey protein with a certain nutritional profile, they're exactly the same as Immunical, that has no bearing on this quote-unquote biological effect. So one of the things that Dr. Bunus found early on through his research was that the nutritional profile of whey protein was unrelated to the biological effect of this product. So, you know, these are incredibly valuable and pearls of wisdom that helped him guide his understanding of whey protein. And if you look at the scientific literature on Immunotech and Immunical, you see the progression of how through their research they started to understand mechanistically why this was occurring. And what is really important is to understand that, you know, the first 20 odd years, we were very fortunate that Dr. Bunus was in an academic environment, because he was able to call on prominent physicians who had models and ideas about why this was occurring. And, you know, they looked at it with regard to immune deficiency, they looked at it in cancer models, they looked at it in aging. And he was able to piece together this giant puzzle to understand, you know, the net effect of these mice taking the product, but also mechanistically why this product exerted the particular effect it did.
Amazing. So in the time we have, oh my goodness, there could be so many questions unraveled from what you just shared with us. But I think what's really important, John, is how do you, and maybe you personally, professionally, how do you frame this legacy of this work? How do you explain what these decades now, we're talking decades, of scientific inquiry and discovery, how do you explain what that means to us as individuals? And then I'd ask you to, you know, two-part here. What's the impact of us as people who are out there talking about this product? How do we convert that value? Because it's a hard distance sometimes to get across to people who may not be familiar with how research works and how important it is when you put something in your body. So two-part question. How do you? I have
a really simple way to think about it, and a very defined way to think about it, because, you know, my background is in finance and marketing. So I thought about these questions from a marketing standpoint. And when I joined the company, I was exposed to the science. So, the beauty of my job is I got to think about these scientific questions in marketing terms. So let me ask you, when you think about Ferrari versus GM, what's the heritage of Ferrari? The heritage of Ferrari is these elite machines. You think of racing, GM is also involved in racing, but GM offers a whole variety of cars. And so if you think about Immunotech and the whole thesis of Immunotech from the very beginning, it was focused on maximizing, first of all, understanding this mechanism of action and then potentiating this mechanism of action over 40 years. So all our expertise, all the scientific experiments have been guided by that principle of maximizing that mechanism and understanding that. So I challenge you to find another company in the world that has the same level of expertise and understanding, historical understanding, with regard to the mechanism. And that's why you've seen over a 40-year period, a company that's been able to put out all this research. We've been able to take it from an experimental model through to an industrial scale. You've had these research experiments that have acted like quality control over the past 40 years. You now have it being used in some of the top academic institutions in the world taken by some of the top athletes. And that, that to me says everything. That's why we were able to access those levels in academia as well as those levels in sports because of the quality of the product and the integrity of the people behind the product.
Amazing. And there's one other question I have for you, because I think it's an important takeaway, John, and distinguishing characteristic of this product. It has a standing in both the US PDR, physician desk reference, and it has standing in the CPS in Canada. Can you comment briefly on how that came to be and why?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and we can talk all day on that. When we were a private company, because of the nature of this product, we actually formed a medical division. And we were going into hospitals, and because so many doctors were being detailed, we decided that since all these doctors are being detailed on the product, that we need to get the product into the CPS and PDR so they have access to the information. So people don't have to keep repeating it, and we're giving the same information. And so it essentially derived from us forming this medical division where we had Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement at one time, but with government cutbacks that dried up. So we closed down the medical division, but that's how that came about.
Amazing. So I would conclude that a product with this pedigree, with this legacy, with this history behind it, is something that I certainly am excited every day to talk to people about. And I've got a lot to say when I get that question and kind of the dazed look in the headlights of, why do you want me to take Immunical, Nancie? Because like Sandy suggested, I have been calling people and I've told everybody I love, I want you on this product. And here's why. And I think John Molson has once again really framed, not only historically, but also in the present day, so much of the value proposition that we can be talking about. So John, I really want to thank you. And again, you've given that integrity to this product, the lineage of the research, and it's something that I know I'm very excited about. And I think that excitement is shared collectively on this call and really worldwide. So I'm going to turn it back to our hosts because I see the hour is going very, very quickly, but I could talk to you all day. You're a wealth of wisdom and institutional remembrance, and we should never, ever, ever, ever lose sight of that. Thank you so much, John. It's such a pleasure to interview you again. So Keith, John Solider, I'm going to turn it back to our hosts. Be well, John.
Thank you, Nancie.
Great call, guys. Great information as always, John. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nancie. Bye for now.